I will just tag you in the video as CakeSpartan, okay? It's no problem. It's no problem for me. Okay, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Cake?
Anyway,
What do you spend your time doing?
What do I spend my time doing? I play video games, I write sci-fi novels, I make videos about people being idiots, and have a general distrust of games media overall.
Well, I think that's a good point, considering we are talking about ethics here, is have you ever been sent review copies? Ultimately, review copies themselves are not bad, because reviewers do need to get a copy of the game before the general public, so that they can write a review, get it out there, and get exposure for themselves, but also inform the masses of what the game is about and whether it's executed properly, whether it runs great, or many issues.
Well, I have
exactly.
never been sent an unsolicited review copy.
Okay, but have you ever received review copies that were more than just the game, that were things that were almost intended to create a bias of your opinion, or to entice you?
I have not. I have seen people that have. I know a few people that have.
That's the real issue, though, isn't it? Because it whether you want to or not, the human psyche will get a bias whether you want to or not, as an opinion,
And if something like that happened to me, I would simply refuse to review the game.
Well, I have refused to review. I got sent almost an $800 review copy of Dark Souls 2. I'm not really a big fan of Dark Souls 2 to begin with, but it was the fact that they sent me it's like this crate thing, and I went and checked on eBay when I got it, and it was selling for like $800, and it just had like scrolls. It was in a wooden case. It had like the game. I would have been fine with just the game. Like, I don't even like Dark Souls, but it would have been fine if I just had the game, But it's just the fact that they know what they're doing. They're sending these things so as to entice reviewers. And I mean, obviously, they're not paying reviewers off. I find that the whole conspiracy theory just retarded, to be honest.
Actually, they have done that.
That obvious.
They have done that.
I'm sure it has happened, but it's a bit retarded to say, I mean.
Well, Konami is actually good at trying stunts like that. I've heard from a few people.
Yeah, well, you heard from Jim Sterling, right, where he said that people who wanted to review Metal Gear Solid 5, they had to go to like a special press event where they were only allowed to see certain parts at a certain time in a certain area.
That there is just completely ridiculous. No, I've actually seen cases where there was a game developer, another one that Jim Sterling doesn't like, and I have a problem with myself.
They
actually sent another friend of mine money, actual cash, and a copy of the game for a positive review.
Wow.
Was it ever specified that it had to be a positive review?
That would be the assumption if you're going to send somebody $2,000 and a copy of a $2 game.
$2,000?
$2 game?
Wait, you don't have any proof of this, do you?
It doesn't really matter. I believe him. That sounds like something the industry would do. Actually.
I know, but what do you value a review at? I mean, is a review really worth $2,000? Especially if people hate the game.
It depends on who reviews it. That's.
I know, but put it this way: if somebody reviews the game and the game turns out to be shit, is that review still worth $2,000? Because think about it: there can be one review that says the game's great and they've been paid off, but then what if there's 1,000 other people saying, "Well, the game's actually shit"? I mean, who are you going to really listen to?
Well, again, it would depend on who. If it were Jim Sterling and he said the game was good, and 100 guys like me are saying, no, this game is crap, don't touch it. Who are they going to listen to?
Well, ultimately,
or if it was PewDiePie or somebody like that.
I would never buy some PewDiePie recommended. Hell no. Fuck right off.
You're not part of the mainstream, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not not 12 years old, so that's also somewhat goes with it right there, doesn't it?
Well,
but I mean,
and here's kind of the thing. The developer in question was one that Jim Sterling has been having significant difficulties with. I will not name them because that, of course, would indicate the possibility of a slander suit. But
I don't care. I'm just gonna let's just say Let's just say it's digital homicide. I don't care. They can sue me. But we're moving a bit off topic here, to be honest. But the main thing we're talking about here is ethics, and that is something which I find it's sort of an unspoken rule. It's not exactly illegal to. I mean, I think it's illegal to take bribes, but it's not illegal to be influenced or be biased. However, I would really like transparency in the same way that there is transparency in traditional media, where
there's the transparency in traditional media at this point is kind of vague too. But that being said, you'll find that there's a lot of people that are saying that will tell you up front, yes, I got a free copy of the game.
Well, also, I don't know how big of a movie watchers you two are. I'm not really big into that media, but I rarely hear of there being biases or reviewers being given preferential treatment. I don't hear that with movie reviews, for example.
Well, usually what happens is they get and this has been stock in trade for as long as movies have existed, really, or at least the idea of movie reviews, and that they take all of the reviewers by region. They do a special screening, or in recent years they've occasionally made Blu-ray. They've made discs or actual copies of the movies in question and sent them to the reviewers.
Yep.
They kick back, they watch it. And more often than not, they send the copies back.
Yep.
They write your review.
But it's a bit different with games, obviously, because they're more the digital content.
Once you've got a copy, you're pretty much stuck with it.
Yeah.
And that's not really that's as far as I'm concerned, that's not an issue either.
No,
if
they
gave you a copy of the game, then just say so and. That's fine.
I don't think that people need to say that they've got a free
swag
copy.
And shit with it, that does drive me a little nuts. It would bias me. And there was a story that Total Biscuit had where the developer in question sent him a kick-ass Alienware laptop,
with the game on it,
with the game on it, in an obvious attempt to curry favor, and he just said, "No, I'm not reviewing the game." He packed it all up and sent it back.
Yeah,
he didn't review the game at all, even if he was trying to because that would automatically biases.
Yep, it is right. I would be the exact same. It would bias my opinion whether I wanted it to or not, and that's the main issue.
Having an opinion, it's a part of the thing with reviews is that you're going to have opinions. You're going to be somewhat biased in one direction or another, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. A review is in fact an opinion, and it's a question of whose opinion you like best as far as who you're going to listen to.
Well, the main thing
or whether
with
or not they
reviews
steered you into something that you think was not cool regardless.
A lot of people with reviews get really pissy, though. I mean, I think almost with opinions, it almost feels like people just want to hear certain things. Like, they want to hear a game do well. Like, even if the game turns out to be shit, they want the review to say the game is great. Like, I think it happened with, what am I trying to think of here? The fucking
Dragon's Crown?
I don't really know much about that game, but I can imagine that people, I mean, why do people want to hear a certain thing? Why don't they want to hear the bad parts about a game?
What everybody really wants is validation of their own opinions, oftentimes. But they don't have playtime with the games, and we get that. We get that when we review games. We get playtime before other people buy it.
Which is fair enough. I mean, you do need to get your reviews out early.
In my opinion, I collected a bunch of Digital Homicide's Greenlight games here a couple days ago off of Itch.io. And yes, I paid for them. Digital Homicide wouldn't send me a key now if I was the last reviewer on Earth that would touch them. And you know what? Well, they haven't improved.
I find it shady as shit, though, when things like review embargoes, which are a good thing, equal opportunity. It allows everyone to take the time to put out a review at the same date, and it's really good. Embargoes are a good thing generally, but when you set your embargo on the day of release, that is shady as shit. That should not be allowed, really.
It's not I think part of the review embargoes are kind of a weird sort of beast. On one hand, they have a considerable amount, a considerable potential to be abused, and like you were saying, you know, day of release or maybe even day before is actually at least somewhat useful to the folks that haven't pre-ordered. I mean, it's not like you're gonna get a copy of the game.
I don't pre-order.
It goes gold, and then review it sharply down before anybody's had a chance to get anything accomplished.
Okay. Well, I find I never pre-order anything because, as Jim Starling and Toll Biscuit have both said, there's no point in pre-ordering a game because, especially if it's a digital game on Steam, because there's no way in hell you're ever going to be able to not find a copy on release, you know? There's no point, and it ultimately does more damage to the industry than anything. But I find it a real issue with review embargoes, especially with games like, I think it happened with Shadow of Mordor. That game turned out to be amazing, but Warner Brothers said certain things that you could only get a pre-release copy if you I think there were certain stipulations. If
you signed a really fucked up contract.
Yeah, you had to sign a copy. It was like they didn't have any belief in their product, yet the game was amazing. It did really well as far as I'm aware. I haven't
played Shadows of Mordor. I very rarely will pre-order a game.
Yeah, same.
And typically because I've already got a preconceived notion of of how it's going to turn out. Usually, because I pre-ordered Fallout 4, for example.
That was a waste of time.
I already know what a Bethesda game's going to do. I know I have a fair idea of what kind of bugs I'm going to run into.
Yeah, and what's going to make
it crash. All the stuff there, and it was actually a fairly safe bet as far as putting together a pre-order.
You lost the karma system, you lost your faction system, you lost quite a few things in Fallout 4.
But it's not the point. The point is, what kind of quality, what kind of product you're gonna get.
Yeah, I suppose
if you don't know what it's going to be, because that's probably what happened with Shadow of Mordor. Because it was the first in the new series, if they actually made a series out of it. It was a completely new IP, technically speaking.
It was.
So we had no idea, especially not with the shady reputation that Warner Brothers has for crappy PC ports and all that.
They were pretty terrible.
Yes. Don't get me started.
It was actually surprised that the game ran so well on PC.
I don't think it ran perfectly at launch. I think it took a patch to get it running really well.
It did actually run a shit ton better than any other Warner Brothers game up until that point.
Definitely true. But I just find it that why would you not have belief in a product like that? Because if the publisher, I know obviously publishers don't even touch the products really, but if they'd even had any screen time with that game, they would have seen that it would have done really well.
Well, and then you have folks like Konami who regularly parcel out shit.
I think.
What?
Pull the lever.
All of this is fit to make you say "fuck Konami."
Yeah, it's Morgan. It's a reference to one of Jim Starling's videos where he's talking about how there's a new Metal Gear Solid game, but actually what it is a fucking pachinko machine because Konami don't make games anymore.
Oh yeah.
And the advert is just like this part where it's going pull the lever.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna say to that is good riddance.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's a shame.
It is. It's shit. Capcom does pull some similar shit.
I haven't heard from Capcom for a few years.
Warner Brothers, their last Batman game. Oh my god, that was horrid.
I don't even think they fixed it to this day. I think it's still a pile of shit.
It still runs like shit. Yeah, actually, on the same card that it came with for me. So I bought a video card that came with the game, and it still, after the latest patches, runs like shit on it.
Yep. And did that even? When was the embargo for that game? Was it set back really far as well? Was it set to
I
the day
don't
of
know. I
release?
think that was actually pretty okay, but the PC version wasn't out until later as the console versions, I think.
Hey,
the
Cake,
console versions.
Cake, when was the review embargo for Batman?
I don't have the foggiest idea.
Okay.
I do know that I didn't see any reviews whatsoever until I think it was 2 days.
Wow, guys!
Prior to release of the PS4 and Xbox One versions, I don't know if anybody got much in terms of PC version ahead of time.
Mogan, you should have no issue. Technically, according to this list, you should have no issue running Batman Arkham Knight. You should be able to run it at max at like 1080p. It's for GTX 760 is recommended.
Well,
yeah,
my
I know, but
670M probably would have.
It came with my card. It should have run it just fine, but it's such a crappy port that it fails.
It runs
When was
like
the last
crap.
time you ran it? And did you manage to get solid 60 at any point?
Yeah, I managed to get a solid 60 at just walking around, obviously. But
what when you got the car?
that just.
Well, this gets better because that game has a rather storied history.
Yeah.
That PC port, Warner Brothers actually pulled it from Steam for a good long while.
They did. Yeah. It's still got shit reviews though.
And even after they re-released it, it's still got shit reviews.
Yeah. Well, after you've got that happen to a game, it rarely gets back up again. You've fucked it up as soon as you've done that.
Well, yeah, but as soon as it came back up, and they shouldn't have released it unless it was patched enough to actually be good enough to.
Well, at this point, Warner Brothers has admitted that it's probably never going to work.
Oh, it's
never
not
going to work properly.
You know what? But you know what? It still finds time to release the DLC. Isn't that just hilarious?
Isn't it great? Well. Isn't that just brilliant? No,
because I'm totally gonna buy fucking DLC for a game I can't even fucking play, right? Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
There's a better on the subject of game embargoes. There's another one that drives me. There's another part of that actually drives me up trees.
Yep.
And that they'll give you they may give you a review copy, and I don't get very many.
Mm-hmm.
And just so you're aware, they'll give you a review copy, give you an embargo date, and 2 days before the embargo date, somebody else has already released a review.
Yep.
Because
I mean, that's the thing, especially with your size.
They cut deals. They cut little backroom deals.
Well, also with the size of reviewers like you, it's technically people don't really follow the rules as much because they're very independent. They're not like a big company where breaking the rules would hurt them, especially.
No, I mean, that's not really what happens there because it's usually the other way around. There's somebody who actually has a lot more influence who cuts a deal, who gets paid to release early if it's actually a positive review.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you scoop them by even 3 minutes, break your embargo date for any reason, you will never get another review copy from that company.
Which I think is somewhat fair enough because if you think about it, like all good things, it can be twisted and turned into a bad thing. But at the ground level, it's a great idea. It's a way to make everyone equal and not make other people better, or have more chances than other people, which is in itself a great idea. Now,
but it goes back to the thing where it has the potential to be abused.
Yeah,
because everyone's going to go look at the first review released, and then when you say something that runs contrary to it, and I frequently do, and you're going to get shit on.
Yep.
And
well, also, did you hear about
with
Borderlands 2? There was a review embargo. Or actually, no, it hadn't been even spoken of yet. But I believe it was who's the head of Gearbox again? I can't remember his name now.
Randy Pitchford.
Randy Pitchford. Yeah, he struck a deal. I think it was with either Eurogamer or Kotaku or someone like that. He struck a deal with these reviewers, and he said, "I'll allow you to release information on that we're gonna be making a new Borderlands 2 game or Borderlands game." And then a different review site found out about this, who were not under any legal obligation or any obligation to not speak about it, because obviously they're journalists, they want to get all the information, and if they haven't signed a contract, they can say whatever the hell they want. Anyway, this other review site heard of this, and they said it. They released it without consent from Gearbox, and they said, hey, there's a new Borderlands 2 game we've heard from sources. And Randy Pitchford accused them of shoddy journalism.
Okay, I remember this story clearly. Eurogamer was supposed to get the scoop, and it was Kotaku that broke the story. That actually broke the story, and actually, if I remember correctly, Kotaku got sued for that.
I don't think they won. No, they wouldn't, because obviously it's Kotaku. They're doing what journalists do. If journalists get a hold of information, they release it. If they're not under any obligation to not, and I honestly think that Kotaku were not in the wrong there at all. I think that they did exactly what they should have done.
That would be the one time in the last few years that Kotaku has not been in the wrong, in my opinion. But then you have to remember that Kotaku was actually towards the middle of that whole thing with Zoe Quinn.
Yep. Actually, I'm not actually entirely, like, I've read up about Gamergate. I'm still not exactly sure what it was. If we're going the route of what Total Biscuit says it was, which is exactly what we're talking about now, which is ethics in video game journalism, great. If it was just about keeping females out of the gaming industry or reviews or developing industry, I don't think that's right at all. But I'm still not actually sure what Gamergate was.
Here's the thing: Gamergate not isn't a was, it still is a. And although the narrative that was presented to the popular press was that of raw misogyny and beating up on Zoe Quinn and Andy Sarkeesian, it was and is still about video game journalism. And the core narrative that Gamergate as a whole put forward initially was that there were some questions of propriety surrounding Zoe Quinn and the whole situation there. And and Gamergate itself didn't actually launch until what was it, a dozen video game websites declared gamers dead, and the rest of the gaming universe said, what? No. No, this is actually what this is. We are not dead, and you guys are being collusory. You need to stop doing that now. And if you don't stop doing that, we're going to hammer you flatter than we're going to hammer you flatter than Will Wheaton's career prospects.
But really, it's with any echelon of society. It's always the small minority that shouts the loudest, and everyone believes that is what they are.
And the American public in general has been told that one must listen and believe the female when she says something has gone wrong.
What do you think of traditional games journal or traditional journalism in the sense that it's just purely written up? Obviously, I think it's completely dead. I think the fact that two game review sites in the past 2 years have closed down because of it. What do you think exactly, and what kind of part of journalism are you in? Are you a video reviewer and writer, or are you purely writer? What exactly would you say?
Well, here's the deal. As far as traditional print media, that's kind of going by the wayside. It's not dead yet, and I don't see it coming back in an age when the internet is. I don't see it coming back to its previous glory in an age when the internet is actually is open pretty much for everybody. But if that ever changes, then you're going to see a resurgence in print media. At the same time, print media is never going to completely die.
I think the last time I ever looked at a written review would have been for Skyrim. And that was even a year after Skyrim came out, and I purely looked at it because I wanted to see what reviews it got. And that was it.
Well, I'm going a little broader here because there are some people that don't have internet access and they don't want internet access. They're never going to get it.
Well, then how do you look at a review?
Well, we're not talking. I'm talking about just traditional media in general.
Oh, you mean printed press?
I'm talking printed press, that kind of thing. As far as written reviews, there is a place for written reviews. And you can say things in a written review that you may not have time for in the short attention span somebody's going to give a video.
Yeah.
If I put out a video about a single game of 5 or 10 minutes, then, or if I'm being entertaining, maybe up to a half hour, then we're actually going to get a little bit more retention. However, there are people that will sit down, great many people that will sit down and spend 20 minutes reading a well-written review.
But it's not that the reviews are bad. It's just the fact that when you're doing a written review, it's about getting traffic more than anything else. And
it's all about getting traffic. It's
I know,
a question of whether or not you're gonna be handy for somebody.
The issue with that, though, is I know there's one gaming site in particular, a review site in particular, that just makes clickbait. That's it, and it's not good to just make clickbait.
Well, there's a lot of those. You're talking about anything Gawker runs does that.
Or anything that survived past the 2000 mark, actually.
I know, but it's just horrible. I mean, that's the issue specifically, especially with written review sites in particular. It's not quite as bad on YouTube. It does happen, obviously, and it's obvious more when it happens on YouTube. You just look out for the red circle and the text that says, "Wow, look what this girl did," or something. But with review sites, it's a bit more shock horror type deals. I believe again Jim Sterling was talking about it. Where I'm terrible remembering the names of the place that did it, but they would essentially sort of attack developers or publishers in ways like, such and such refused to talk about women in this game, and it's like, oh god, it's just clickbait.
That's pretty much any of the so-called social justice sites. I avoid those things. I avoid those places like the plague. But then there are a few sites, Tech Raptor for one, and of course the Jimquisition.com. You're actually going to find a well-written, well-thought-out review, and that's really what a lot of people are looking for. They're going to go for the clickbait because it's clickbait, and people fall for that shit all the time.
Yeah, but the issue with clickbait is it's more like a one-trick pony, really, isn't it? Because you click on it like, it's clickbait. Oh, I'm going to fuck off this site now, aren't I?
It's a one-trick pony, and that's actually why some of these gaming sites are shutting down. They're getting a reputation for doing the clickbaity thing, and the gamers, ones that are actually serious about playing games and not screwing with the whole social justice aspect that everybody's been pushing on the games media since Anita Sarkeesian came onto the scene.
Mm-hmm.
If your reviews are well written, the gamers will stick around.
Actually, going back to things like the original Xbox, what were reviews like back then? Because I wasn't even interested in reviews back then. I just bought games and played them.
Back then, the internet wasn't really that big of a medium.
Well, a lot of the reviews I saw were in print, usually in magazines.
Yeah. Do you remember the big packs of stuff you used to get with those as well?
Yeah, I know. What happened to those days? No, a lot of things, reviews then were well written. Typically, they had to be because they had to go through traditional media rules.
Well, they also had to build up a following. They had to be renowned as good, and you had to keep that going.
And if you had tried the shit that Kotaku and Gama Sutra and some of those other places do right now, you wouldn't have gotten anywhere.
Nope.
You'd have been dead.
Nope. I don't think it would have flown then anyway, because you didn't have SJW. So.
Well, you did have SJWs. They just weren't as well organized as they are now, for lack of a better word.
They didn't have a lot of influence because print media, it's hard to influence that.
It is. And
at least that's because print media is protected by the ethical standards of newspaper journalism.
Yep, and that I think that needs to somehow apply to current ethics in video games, because you have to have that unspoken rule. It has to be there, and people have to keep that in the back of their minds whenever they're doing anything, because ultimately, if you're able to be responsible and mature, then people are going to be more interested in you because you're genuine, as opposed to just telling them what they want to hear.
And that's why people like Jim Sterling, who actually stops and thinks about his reviews, writes things out, and does all of the legwork, they keep getting a following. That's why I'm starting to get a following for video games journalism, because I do actually stop and I think about it when I do a review. I write a fairly verbose review to kind of lay out what my opinions are and why my opinions are the way they are. And that's something you can do in a written piece that doesn't really translate well to a video.
Videos are also a great medium because you can show what you're talking about. Like with reviews, for example, with the Metro series, I think it was Metro Last Light when I was watching one, they were saying, the voice acting isn't brilliant, and then they would show a clip of the voice acting that they thought wasn't good. And it's a great way to show people exactly what is good and what isn't good. But what I do like on the other flip side of things is bad reviews, because that's what I look at when I go to a page on Steam. I don't look at the positive reviews. I look at the bad reviews, because I weigh up, are these issues so bad that I would hate the game? If someone says
legitimate issues, that's
exactly. If someone says, "Oh, the loading times are a bit long," oh, that's not an issue for me. Or if someone says that the story isn't brilliant, well, that could be an issue, but it really depends in what sense. That's how you got to look at them.
Or under what circumstances we're talking about here. But there's more there's oftentimes more to it than that.
If I'm gonna be honest here, I actually until today never heard of Kotaku, so just reading up on that.
Never heard of Kotaku. Yeah, there's a lot of reviewers. I mainly look at like Rock Paper Shotgun, but that's mainly because it appears a lot in the Steam feed.
It's the same with Zoe Quinn. Never heard of that name before until today, so.
Well, he's
the one that released Depression Quest.
I really like the game. I don't like
that. Was the first game that I publicly reviewed, and I tore it up.
I know what it's supposed to do, but it just sounds like a whiny bitch story.
When someone in either a review or a what's it called, a serious review or something like that, tries to use other words, it honestly just sounds really fucked up.
Well, okay. First off, I did this because it was Steam.
Okay, well, I swear on Steam all the fucking time.
Except that I didn't want the little hearts running around.
The developer blocking people or removing reviews that he doesn't like, it's because, it's the same with people like Jim Sterling or, famously Total Biscuit, who deleted his Twitter. He just can't deal with it. It's just so much information. It's so much talk. It's just damaging.
Well, and when people, honestly, when people say icky shit about me, I just don't bother.
Yeah, but it's not on the scale.
Most of the time.
It's not on the scale of thousands a day. It's not people telling you to die of cancer. It's not, maybe they are, but it's not thousands of people.
Well, it's not.
We're
not talking. Well, I'm not talking about thousands of people.
And here's the thing: how are you meant to take reviewers seriously, or how are video game reviews meant to be taken seriously when this kind of childish shit can happen?
Well, and that's actually the downside to doing such things on Steam.
Just to end it, what do you really think should be implemented in the press, or if there is a way ultimately, apart from educating people on how to act or how to bring themselves? Obviously, you'll always have those people that just do not follow the crowd no matter what. You have Fox News, for Christ's sake, with normal news, which is just literally reactionary bullshit that is just for the masses, and people eat it up like fucking shit. But what needs to change with video games journalism that you think
I will be completely honest with you? What we need to do is video games journalists is stop and think and attach the same sort of ethical guidelines that we have that have been a part of print media for the last 400 years. But
it's very difficult to apply with video games, because I think at least in press
it's harder
in the press. There's a law, or at least there's a what's it called, a committee, isn't there, that regulates it?
Not video games journalism, no. Regular journalism has ethical standards, and they do have something resembling an ethics board. But if you are accused of an ethics violation as part of a newspaper, then your editors are going to take it much more harshly than you would at most video game sites.
Yeah.
What we need to do is we need to get back to the games, get all the social justice bullshit worked back out, and things will start stabilizing again.
But why can't games include politics? Because I think games have every right to include politics.
There's a difference between politics, and I know this distinction is going to seem a little fine, but there's a difference between politics and the sort of shit that's being pushed by the social justice folks.
Yeah, there is obviously, and it's a bit more, again, reactionary with social justice. But I still think it should be able to be included, and politics should still pose a big fight.
There's a difference between working it out and eliminating it completely. I mean, if you have if you have a game reviewer that's just completely rabid social justice, then maybe you want to put them down. You put them out of our misery. But at the same time, if I make a comment about how this game is an example of a strong female character, that's okay. If I went, well, they didn't include a female character in the game, blah, 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 and
I don't think content should be shoehorned.
Everybody would be within their rights to just completely unsubscribe my channel, just not even look at my Steam reviews anymore. Yeah. There's a difference between commenting
there's also a difference
between minorities or women or whatever the hell else in a video game, if that's something that you think maybe could be addressed or something.
I think it should only be put in if it fits. I think
if it fits, if the shoe fits, then wear it. If you're going to try and hammer, say, Bayonetta, because she's got the super long legs and
she's
her outfit's made out of pubic hair, then you've got you do a complete destroy based on nothing but that, and you're doing something wrong. You are doing something that is inherently wrong,
not the entirety.
Yeah,
then it becomes a bias that colors everything.
Yep. Well, it was the same with things like I think it's Dead or Alive. That game is pretty generic to say the least. I mean, it's just basically volleyball with tits, really. It's nothing special.
Specifically talking about the volleyball games, then.
Well, I don't know. Those are the only ones I know. But Dead or Alive, nothing special, really, is it? I mean,
it's not. It's not anything special. And as games, they're okay.
They're not selling very well anymore, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to make many more of them. But people still attack them, yet it's an entirely different audience. It's not really my kind of game, and
I don't know. I own a couple of them. I own a couple of those games.
Of course,
and
you do.
What? Every once in a while, I go out and I wander through and play them because.
I mean, no, I would ask it if it was Morgan, but you know what? Since you, I'm probably not going to ask.
What do you mean?
Well, did you ever masturbate to it? I mean,
well. No, but
why?
It doesn't mean I don't like seeing.
Yeah, exactly. It's something I like to see, but I won't masturbate to it. I mean, we've got porn for that, right?
Yeah, well, you've got Skyrim mods for that.
The whole problem with the Dead or Alive series is that they focus too much on the aspect that they have a literal team of people working on the body physics.
Tit physics.
Yeah, mostly tits, obviously, but specifically in the newer games, also ass physics, obviously.
Yeah,
because we don't see that booty, y'all. But the problem is that they focus on that way too much, even though that's been around since the series was started, and it wasn't a problem back then because you couldn't see it well enough. They sexualized the characters back
and now
then.
they're putting some focus on it, and that's okay too. If that's the part that's actually selling for them, then that's the part that's actually selling for them.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's sexist. Is it a good game? That's the only thing that matters.
That really is it. And I just think that games should work to their strengths and their weaknesses.
I think you should say, if you think a game is sexist, you should be able to say that a game is sexist, obviously. But it shouldn't. You shouldn't be saying that the game is shit because it's sexist.
No,
because that wouldn't actually be true.
Just generalize.
A Dead or Alive game,
I mean, fucking hell. What's it called? Duke Nukem is sexist as hell, but that game is
but that's
fun.
the whole point of the game.
Yeah.
Its whole character's supposed to be
if you're gonna play a Bayonetta game and then bitch about the protagonist, the only question I have is, what the fuck did you expect?
Yeah, what did you?
What did you expect when you put the disc in the Wii U? Come on, people.
I mean,
it's a Bayonetta game.
I'm also
it's not like the last one wasn't perfectly clear on what it was about.
How would that even get any negative attention from women? I mean, it's the main character, the strong female character. Sure, she's sexualized, but she's the strong female protagonist. Like, there's no contest here with men whatsoever.
I think the thing is though, people often say, "Oh, women are sexualized," but then, a lot of people say, "Well, men are too," because men are really muscly. But then men can be ugly. I can't really think of many games where women are ugly in them.
I can think of a few.
Of a main character.
Not a lot. Yeah, as a main character. There's not a lot of them.
That's skipping where you can make your own character. I mean, I'm not talking about Saints Row and stuff.
I'm not talking about that. I'm specifically talking about pre-made characters that are actually ugly.
Like what?
Well, there are a few characters in some RPGs that you can't modify that aren't really appealing to look at.
RPGs is somewhat different because I know they're randomly generated.
The ones that you don't have any customization control over. Like, you have a set specific characters.
Almost any RPG has those.
Yeah, because they're randomly generated.
I'm
talking about a main character. As in, you get this main character, you play this main character, that's it. You can customize the way you play it, as that's the RPG. But you cannot customize the way she looks. That's what I mean.
I would say Geralt of Rivia is pretty sexualized for a man in Witcher 3.
Yeah, he definitely is.
I mean, he's not an ugly-looking guy. I'll say that.
But if you go back to some of the older games, you get that quite a bit. You do find women that don't look great.
Yeah.
That could be just as easily a limitation of the technology at the time. For example, a recent example would be Remember Me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't find that girl particularly. I don't find the female protagonist there, and there isn't a male one, particularly attractive. Yeah. But everyone is going to be attracted to somebody. It's just a question of what.
Exactly.
Yep. Of obviously, what that particular person's tastes are. I know there are some people that would hit the character, that would hit that in a heartbeat. The lady from Remember Me. Yep. But you know what? I wouldn't touch that.
Actually, speaking of reviews, that's a great one for Remember Me, because that game changed so much in development. Like, I remember looking at it in a magazine even, and looking at it and thinking, wow, it could be almost like Mirror's Edge, but with like a memory remixer, like for the story, and you could change how the game would work, and then it turned into like a fucking beat 'em up with story sections. It was never ended up buying it.
Yeah, that wasn't so great. The one thing they were trying, but then for Remember Me, they had to hide the protagonist until it was released.
Yeah, almost. Apparently they had to fight. They had to fight just to get a female protagonist. Yeah, I heard about that. It's so weird.
Wow. Well, you actually know that a very unpopular opinion that I share is that Bayonetta was criticized for the female character being too sexualized, right?
Mm-hmm.
To being too much of, she's a pretty girl with.
She's not that hot.
And I find her actually to be one of the ugliest characters I've ever seen in a video game.
She's not that hot at all.
I'd say that
her limbs are completely all out of proportion. I'm
talking about her face mainly, but
Yeah, she isn't that hot in my opinion either. No,
it's like I like glasses on a chick as much as the next guy, but come on,
she looks like the secretary in a porn video thumbnail that just turns you off. Like you look at it, it's like, yeah, no.
It's almost as if they had a collection just of all the fetishes that they could think of, just threw them in one pot and see if anything living came out of it.
You know what? You know what the fun part of it was, and that was a mistake that commonly gets made. The designer for Bayonetta was a female.
Well, there goes your entire argument of sexualization.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, and and Bayonetta is held up as the ultimate in, oh wow, you're over sexualizing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is the example.
I know, but
that
then
they
you can
use for that.
I'd like to say that at least my opinions on the whole ethics stuff is that unfortunately not a lot of it matters. I mean, really, there was no ethics to begin with.
Well, I know, but
it's just naive to assume there ever were any ethics.
Would you not like the idea, though, that perhaps what you were paying for would be what the reviewers saw as well? Because I'm sure you look at reviews before you buy a game.
Yes, but that's not a question of ethics. That's a question that's, at least in my opinion, that has nothing to do with ethics.
But ethics still join it, though, because I mean,
the only part in that has anything to do with ethics is the influence that a company tries to put, or the influence that they can put on a reviewer. That's the only part that has anything to do with ethics.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. Do you think that
review content in itself is completely different topic?
Yeah, that is quite difficult to make ethical anyway, because that's down to personal biases, likes and dislikes, and that's why you choose a reviewer that you agree with and have the same likes and dislikes with.
Yeah,
but
because
obviously the ethics of a company trying to impose itself upon a reviewer by garnering good favor, that is where ethics should apply.
Yeah, but you can argue that somebody who says sexism is a real problem in a game that has something to do with ethics, but it doesn't really. It doesn't really. No, it's more that it's a crap review then, because it's not written as a review. It's written as a rant.
It's written as a shock piece, really.
Yeah, or a rant, depends on how it's structured, obviously.
Yeah.
It's more of an angry commentary then. It doesn't have any value anymore.
Yeah.
As long as the ethical part is,
I just want transparency. Ultimately, more than anything, I want transparency. Yeah. I want to like the first 10 seconds of review. I just want to be able to say
with people
what they
getting
got.
paid to write a review.
Mm-hmm.
I'd actually be fine with that as long as they were also legally bound to announce that beforehand. As in, you'd have a disclaimer like, okay, I was paid to review the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd automatically go in with a mindset of, oh, I'll take this with a grain of salt.
Well, Total Biscuit's done that before, I think.
No, he's only done promotional videos as in gameplay videos.
Yeah, promotional. Would that not count as the same?
No, it doesn't, because it's not a review. He doesn't present it as a review.
Oh, okay.
So it's a different format.
What he calls it. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about his gameplay videos as in, we're going to play this game and it's going to be fun, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's
he did
no
that
opinions
with
shared about games. Did
he do that about Chivalry? I think he did that with Chivalry, didn't he? Medieval Warfare?
I have no idea. I just know that he did a few videos on the Legacy of the Void co-op missions.
Yep.
And he said on the opening of every video, it was a sponsored video, and he didn't have anything to talk about in the game. It's just him playing the game with another guy. I forget his name.
Which ultimately, it's almost a good tactic, because if you pay a well-known reviewer to play the game and they don't review it, then it's quite good, because then they can't say it's a bad game either, really, can they? Well, they could, but, it would be kind of difficult. Most of them would either not touch it, or they would only make it for gameplay videos. So it'd be a good way to stop people saying either bad things about it,
Yeah.
In the same way, it can be abused, which is really the shame. But I think it was
really the main issue, that there's systems in place that don't really work because they can be abused. But if you make them as such that they can't be abused, that usually means that they don't do their jobs anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with law.
That's the whole problem.
The same with law and due process. It's just
the law
up.
usually has the same problems. Like, well, we made these laws to prevent people from doing things, or at least so we could punish them accordingly, so to speak. And then there are other problems that, also prevent them from actually using it.
Yep.
It's just a double-edged sword, so to speak.
It really is. You just have to be careful when you write anything. But it was great doing the video with you, Mom, the podcast. So thanks a lot for coming along this time. Even if it was just randomly, just like, get online now.
Yes. I'll see you in the next one then.